Pay attention to this courtroom footage from November 2019, a juvenile courtroom in Boulder Creek, California. When the defendant enters, watch the faces of everyone in that room. Watch the judge's expression shift from stern authority to something else entirely. Something that looks almost like fear. "16-year-old Tyler Vance walks in wearing an oversized orange jumpsuit, his hands shackled in front of him. But it's not the chains that make everyone in that courtroom go silent. It's the smile, this wide theatrical grin that doesn't touch his eyes. He's performing for the cameras, and he knows exactly what he's doing. As he passes the gallery, he makes eye contact with the victim's family, and, I want you to notice this, he winks. Just a quick, deliberate wink at the mother of the boy he's accused of killing. The media would later call him the smirking defendant. Local news stations would play this footage on a loop for weeks. But Samantha and David Chen, the parents of 15-year-old Nathan Chen, they called him something else entirely. They called him the monster who stole their only child. This is the story of how a high school sophomore's obsession with true crime documentaries and his desperate need for attention turned a Friday night basketball game into a community's worst nightmare. This is a window into the mind of a teenager who believed he was smarter than everyone in that courtroom, who thought he could manipulate his way out of murder. And this is about the moment when his mask finally cracked and the real Tyler Vance was revealed. Let me take you back to Boulder Creek, California. Population 18,000. The kind of place where the biggest event of the week was the high school basketball game on Friday nights, where parents felt safe letting their teenagers walk home after dark, where everyone knew the local coffee shop owner by name, and the high school principal had taught half the parents in town. Nathan Chen was 15 years old that October. If you asked his teachers to describe him, you'd hear the same words over and over. Brilliant, kind, motivated. He was taking AP classes as a sophomore. He played point guard on the JV basketball team. He volunteered at the animal shelter every Saturday morning, and he'd recently started a coding club at school that met twice a week after classes. His parents, Samantha and David, had immigrated from Taiwan when Nathan was 3 years old. David worked as a mechanical engineer. Samantha taught piano lessons from their home. They'd worked tirelessly to build a life in Boulder Creek, to give Nathan every opportunity. And Nathan had taken those opportunities and run with them. He was everything they'd hoped for: respectful, ambitious, genuinely good. Nathan had this habit of texting his mom after every basketball game, always. She always called, always. Just a quick message: we won 52-48, heading to Pizza Palace with the team, be home by 11. It was their routine. It made Samantha feel connected, made her feel like she was still part of his teenage world even as he grew more independent. On Friday, October 18, 2019, Boulder Creek High played their rival school, Pine Ridge. Nathan scored 14 points. His team won 61-57. The gym was packed with parents and students cheering from the bleachers. It was one of those perfect autumn nights where everything felt right with the world. At 9:47 p.m., Nathan texted his mom, "Great game, going to Pizza Palace, home by 11. He never came home. What nobody in Boulder Creek knew, what Nathan himself didn't know, was that someone had been watching him, studying him, for months. Tyler Vance was 16 years old, a junior at Boulder Creek High. Teachers described him differently than they described Nathan. Tyler was smart, exceptionally so, but he was also isolated, almost completely isolated. He ate lunch alone in the library. He never participated in class discussions unless forced. He had this intensity about him that made other students uncomfortable. The way he'd stare without blinking, the way he'd smile at inappropriate moments. Tyler's home life was complicated. His father had left when he was 8. His mother, Angela Vance, worked 2 jobs: administrative assistant during the day, gas station clerk 3 nights a week. She was doing her best, but she was exhausted, stretched too thin. She didn't notice when Tyler stopped coming out of his bedroom. She didn't see what was covering his walls. Tyler's bedroom was a shrine. Newspaper clippings about famous murder cases, printed screenshots from true crime forums, handwritten notes analyzing crime scene evidence, books about forensic science and criminal psychology stacked everywhere. But the centerpiece was a corkboard covered with photographs and information about one person, Nathan Chen. Pictures of Nathan at basketball games, screenshots from Nathan's Instagram, Nathan's class schedule that Tyler had somehow obtained, maps showing Nathan's route home from school, lists of Nathan's friends, his activities, his routines. Tyler had been documenting everything, planning something, for months. In his journal, a black composition notebook that investigators would later find hidden under his mattress, Tyler wrote obsessively about what he called the perfect crime. He studied other cases, analyzed where killers had made mistakes, where they'd left evidence. He was convinced he could do better. He was convinced he was smarter than all of them. But this wasn't just about committing a crime and getting away with it. Tyler had developed a twisted fascination with Nathan specifically. Nathan represented everything Tyler wasn't: popular, accomplished, loved. In Tyler's mind, destroying Nathan would somehow prove his own superiority, would show everyone how special Tyler really was. October 18th wasn't random. Tyler had been planning this specific night for weeks. He knew Nathan would be at the game. He knew Nathan would go to Pizza Palace afterward with the team. He knew Nathan's route home, and he'd prepared. At 10:42 p.m., Nathan left Pizza Palace with 3 teammates. They walked together for 2 blocks before splitting up. Nathan continued alone down Maple Street toward his house, which was another 6 blocks away. The street was well lit. There were houses on both sides. Under normal circumstances, it was perfectly safe. But Tyler was waiting. He positioned himself in the narrow alley between Harper's Hardware and the closed bakery. From there, he had a clear view of Maple Street. He'd been standing there for over an hour, wearing dark clothing, a baseball cap pulled low. He looked like any other teenager hanging out. Nobody gave him a second glance. When Nathan walked past the alley entrance, Tyler called out, "Hey Nathan, can you help me real quick?" Nathan stopped, turned around. He recognized Tyler from school, though they'd never really talked. Nathan was the kind of kid who helped when someone asked. Big mistake. "My phone died and I can't find my house keys," Tyler said, stepping out of the shadows. "Can I borrow yours to call my mom?" Nathan pulled out his phone without hesitation. "Yeah, no problem." Tyler took the phone. Then, in one swift motion, he brought up his other hand, the one that had been hidden behind his back, and struck Nathan across the head with a metal pipe he'd taken from his garage that morning. Nathan crumpled to the ground, stunned, but still conscious. Tyler dragged him deeper into the alley, out of sight from the street. What happened next would haunt the investigators who eventually reviewed the evidence. Tyler had brought zip ties, duct tape, and a hunting knife. He'd planned every detail. The medical examiner would later determine that Nathan fought for his life. There were defensive wounds on his hands and arms, but he was 15 years old, already injured from the initial blow, and Tyler was methodical, determined. It took approximately 8 minutes, based on the timeline investigators reconstructed. 8 minutes while cars drove past on Maple Street, while families watched television in the houses nearby, completely unaware that a child was dying in that alley. When it was over, Tyler used Nathan's phone to send one final text to Samantha Chen at 10:53 p.m. "Stopping at Marcus's house, home late, don't wait up." Then he smashed the phone and dropped it in a storm drain 3 blocks away. He wiped down the pipe and left it in the alley. He walked the 7 blocks to his own house, entered through the back door so his mother wouldn't see him, took a shower, and went to bed. Samantha Chen wasn't alarmed by the late text. Nathan was 15, increasingly independent. She trusted him. She went to bed around 11:30 p.m., assuming he was at his friend Marcus's house. But at 6:30 a.m. the next morning, when she went to wake Nathan for his Saturday volunteer shift at the animal shelter and found his bed empty, still made from the previous day, everything changed. She called Nathan's phone. It went straight to voicemail. She called Marcus. Nathan had never been there. David Chen called the police at 6:47 a.m. to report his son missing. Detective Raymond Harris caught the case. He was a 22-year veteran of the Boulder Creek Police Department And something about this one immediately felt wrong. Good kids didn't just disappear. He started making calls, trying to retrace Nathan's movements from the previous night. At 9:15 a.m., a woman walking her dog found Nathan's body in the alley between Harper's Hardware and the bakery. She called 911, hysterical, barely able to form words. Detective Harris arrived at the scene within minutes. What he saw would stay with him forever. Nathan was lying on his side, his basketball team jacket still on, his backpack nearby. The scene was violent, but organized. The killer had taken time, had been methodical. This wasn't random. This was planned. The Boulder Creek Police Department immediately called in the county's major crimes unit. By noon, the alley was swarmed with forensic technicians, detectives, and crime scene specialists. They documented everything: blood patterns, the position of the body, trace evidence. They found the metal pipe, wiped clean, but still bearing microscopic traces. They found zip tie remnants and pieces of duct tape. They also found something else. Security camera footage from Harper's Hardware showed a figure standing in the alley entrance between 9:30 and 10:45 p.m. The figure was partially obscured, wearing a baseball cap, but the body type and height suggested a teenager or young adult. The camera couldn't capture the actual attack. It was positioned wrong, but it showed the figure dragging something deeper into the alley at 10:44 p.m. Detective Harris began interviewing Nathan's teammates, his friends, anyone who'd been at the game or Pizza Palace. Everyone described the same thing. Nathan had been in great spirits, laughing with friends, celebrating the win. Nothing unusual. But one student mentioned seeing someone else at the game who stood out. There was this junior, Tyler Vance, sitting alone in the top row. He wasn't cheering or anything. He was just watching Nathan the whole time. It was kind of weird. Detective Harris ran a background check on Tyler Vance. No criminal record. Good grades. Mother working 2 jobs. Father out of the picture. On paper, nothing concerning. But Harris had learned to trust his instincts over 22 years. He decided to bring Tyler in for a voluntary interview, just to see what the kid had to say. Tyler Vance walked into the police station on Sunday afternoon with his mother, Angela, who looked exhausted and confused. She couldn't understand why police wanted to talk to her son. Tyler had been home Friday night, she insisted. He'd been in his room when she got back from her evening shift at 11:30 p.m. Detective Harris conducted the interview in a small room with a recording camera. He started with basic questions. Did Tyler know Nathan Chen? Yes, they went to the same school. Was Tyler at the basketball game Friday night? Yes, he'd been there. Did Tyler see Nathan after the game? No. But Tyler was performing. That's the only way to describe it. He was answering questions with this artificial sadness, this exaggerated concern. I hope you find who did this, he said, his voice trembling in a way that sounded rehearsed. Nathan seemed like a really good guy. Detective Harris noticed something else. Tyler kept asking questions about the investigation. What evidence had they found? Did they have any suspects? How long did these things usually take to solve? He was trying to seem helpful, but he was really gathering information. Harris asked Tyler about his route home from the game. Tyler said he'd walked straight home, got there around 9:45 p.m. Harris asked if anyone could verify that. Tyler said his mom was already asleep when he got home, but he'd watched YouTube videos in his room until midnight. What videos? Harris asked. Tyler listed several, including timestamps. Very specific timestamps. 2 specific. Normal teenagers didn't remember exactly what they watched and when unless they were creating an alibi. Harris thanked Tyler for his cooperation and let him leave. Then he immediately got a search warrant for Tyler's house, his computer, and his phone records. The search of Tyler Vance's bedroom took place on Monday, October 21st. What investigators found shocked even the seasoned detectives. The corkboard covered with information about Nathan Chen. The journal filled with detailed plans. Notes about Nathan's schedule, his routes, his habits. Research about forensic science and how to avoid leaving evidence. Drafts of that final text message Tyler had sent from Nathan's phone. He'd practiced the wording multiple times in his journal to make it sound natural. They also found Tyler's laptop. His search history told the whole story. He'd researched strangulation techniques, how long it took for someone to lose consciousness, how much force was required. He'd watched hours of true crime documentaries and had bookmarked forums where people discussed famous murder cases. Most damning, in a shoebox under his bed, investigators found a pair of sneakers with microscopic blood spatter. Preliminary testing indicated it was human blood. DNA analysis would later confirm it matched Nathan Chen. Tyler had been so focused on avoiding leaving evidence at the crime scene that he'd forgotten about the evidence in his own room. He'd underestimated the police, assumed they wouldn't look at him as a suspect because he had no obvious connection to Nathan. Detective Harris arrested Tyler Vance on Tuesday, October 22nd, 4 days after Nathan's murder. Tyler was charged with first-degree murder with special circumstances, premeditation, lying in wait. Because he was 16, prosecutors had to decide whether to try him as a juvenile or petition to have him tried as an adult. Given the level of planning and the brutality of the crime, they chose adult court. Tyler's arraignment was scheduled for November 14, 2019. What happened at that arraignment became one of the most widely discussed courtroom moments in California juvenile justice history. This was the footage that opened this story. Tyler Vance entering the courtroom with that theatrical smile, winking at Nathan's parents, performing for the cameras. Judge Patricia Morrison presided over the arraignment. She was a 28-year veteran of the bench, known for being fair but firm. She'd seen countless defendants in her courtroom, but something about Tyler Vance unsettled her from the moment he walked in. Tyler pled not guilty. His public defender, Robert Keene, had his work cut out for him. The evidence was overwhelming. The journal, the corkboard, the sneakers, the search history, Tyler's own lies about his whereabouts. The case was essentially airtight, but Tyler was convinced he could still manipulate the situation. He didn't understand that he'd already lost. Over the next 6 months, as the case moved toward trial, Tyler's behavior became increasingly bizarre. He would smirk during pretrial hearings. He would stare at the prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney Lisa Wong, with unsettling intensity. He wrote letters to true crime podcasters, offering to tell his side of the story in exchange for publicity. His public defender begged him to stop, explained that every action was being noted, that the prosecution would use his behavior to demonstrate lack of remorse. But Tyler couldn't help himself. He was addicted to the attention, convinced that his intelligence would somehow save him. The trial was set for May 2020, but was delayed multiple times due to the pandemic. It finally began in October 2020, nearly a year after Nathan's death. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. Assistant District Attorney Lisa Wong walked the jury through Nathan's life, his kindness, his dedication, his dreams of becoming a software engineer. She showed them photographs of Nathan at basketball games, volunteering at the animal shelter, laughing with friends. She called Samantha and David Chen to testify about their son, about the hole his death had left in their family. Then she walked the jury through the evidence. The corkboard from Tyler's bedroom, projected onto screen so everyone could see the obsessive documentation. The journal with its detailed plans. The sneakers with Nathan's blood. The security footage showing Tyler waiting in the alley. The forensic evidence placing Tyler at the scene. She brought in Dr. Jennifer Patel, a forensic pathologist who testified about Nathan's injuries, about the defensive wounds that showed he'd tried to fight back. She brought in a digital forensics expert who walked through Tyler's search history, the disturbing videos he'd watched, the forums where he'd discussed famous murders. The defense's strategy was limited. Robert Keene couldn't dispute the evidence. It was too overwhelming. Instead, he focused on Tyler's age, his difficult home life, his isolation. He brought in a psychologist who testified that Tyler showed signs of attachment disorder and had developed an unhealthy obsession with true crime as a way to process his own feelings of powerlessness. But Tyler was still performing. During the trial, he would lean back in his chair, smirk at witnesses, shake his head dismissively during testimony. Judge Morrison warned him multiple times to control his behavior. Tyler would comply for a few hours, then resume the theatrics. The moment that changed everything happened, during the defense's closing argument. Robert Keene was speaking to the jury about Tyler's troubled background, about the importance of considering his age and mental state. Tyler sat at the defense table, that same smirk on his face. Then, Samantha Chen, sitting in the front row of the gallery, stood up. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, holding a photograph of Nathan, his school picture from freshman year, that genuine smile that lit up his whole face. She stood there for 30 seconds, maybe a minute, just holding that picture so Tyler could see it. Tyler's smirk faltered. Just for a moment, his mask cracked. His face went pale. His hands started shaking. Judge Morrison noticed it. The jury noticed it. Everyone in that courtroom saw Tyler Vance finally confronting what he'd done. Not as a character in his twisted fantasy, but as reality. Robert Keene finished his closing argument. Then Lisa Wong stood for the prosecution's rebuttal. She didn't focus on the evidence this time. She focused on Tyler's behavior throughout the trial. "You've watched the defendant for weeks now," she said. "You've seen him smirk. You've seen him perform. You've seen him treat this trial like it's entertainment. That's not mental illness. That's not a troubled teenager acting out. That's a killer who still thinks he's smarter than everyone in this room. That's someone who planned a murder for months, executed it, tried to cover his tracks, and now thinks he can manipulate his way out of the consequences." She paused, then pointed at Tyler. "But you saw what just happened. When Nathan's mother stood up with that photograph, forcing the defendant to see Nathan as a real person rather than an abstract victim in his fantasy, his mask slipped. You saw real emotion for the first time. And that emotion was fear. Fear that he's finally going to be held accountable." The jury deliberated for 7 hours. They returned with a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder with special circumstances. Guilty of lying in wait. Guilty. Tyler Vance showed no reaction when the verdicts were read, but his hands were still shaking. The mask was gone. What remained was a 17-year-old boy who'd destroyed 2 families, Nathan's and his own, because of a twisted obsession with true crime and a desperate need to feel superior. The sentencing hearing took place in December 2020. Judge Patricia Morrison heard victim impact statements from Samantha and David Chen, from Nathan's grandparents, from his former teachers and basketball coach. Each one described the light that Nathan had brought into their lives and the darkness Tyler had left in his place. Angela Vance also testified, tearful and devastated. She talked about missing the signs, about being so focused on keeping a roof over their heads that she hadn't seen what was happening in her own home. She expressed profound sorrow for the Chen family. Her testimony was heartbreaking, a mother realizing she'd lost her son too, just in a different way. Tyler was given an opportunity to speak. For the first time, he didn't perform. He stood, his voice barely above a whisper, and said, "I'm sorry." That was it. 2 words. Nothing else. Judge Morrison sentenced Tyler Vance to 25 years to life in prison. Because he'd been 16 at the time of the crime, he would be eligible for a parole hearing after 25 years under California law. But given the premeditation and brutality, parole would be unlikely. Tyler was transferred to a juvenile facility until he turned 18, then moved to adult prison. According to reports, he no longer smirks or performs. He mostly keeps to himself, withdrawn and isolated, much like he was in high school. The Chen family established the Nathan Chen Memorial Scholarship at Boulder Creek High School for students interested in computer science and community service. Every year, they award $5,000 to a graduating senior who embodies Nathan's values of kindness and dedication. The basketball team retired Nathan's number, 23, and it hangs in the gymnasium alongside a memorial plaque. His coding club continues to meet twice a week, now with 40 members, all of whom learn about Nathan's vision for using technology to help others. Boulder Creek changed after Nathan's death. Parents became more vigilant. The school district implemented new safety protocols. The community installed additional street lighting on Maple Street and throughout the downtown area. They couldn't bring Nathan back, but they could honor his memory by trying to ensure no other family experienced what the Chens had endured. Samantha Chen had to close her piano teaching studio. She couldn't focus, couldn't find joy in music anymore. David threw himself into work, often staying at his office until late at night, because coming home to Nathan's empty room was unbearable. They went to grief counseling. They joined a support group for parents who'd lost children to violence. They survived, but they were forever changed. Nathan Chen was 15 years old when his life was stolen. He was Nathan, a son, a basketball player, a volunteer, a friend, a student with dreams of changing the world through technology. He had a habit of leaving encouraging notes in his teammates' lockers before big games. He once spent an entire weekend building a website for the animal shelter so more dogs would get adopted. He made his mother laugh with terrible puns and taught his father how to play video games. Tyler Vance tried to reduce Nathan to a victim in his twisted fantasy, tried to make Nathan's death about Tyler's own intelligence and superiority. But Nathan was so much more than what happened to him in that alley. He was kindness and dedication and genuine goodness in a world that desperately needs more of all three. Rest in peace, Nathan Chen. You deserve so much better than the evil that found you that October night. But your kindness, your dedication, and your beautiful spirit will always be remembered.